Thank you so much for joining us today on Connect and Collaborate, where we come together each day to introduce you to our network of business and community leaders and to discuss important issues that impact business in Colorado and the region. I'm Tammy Schaefer, your on-air producer, and this week on Connect and Collaborate, our focus is on the energy industry. Energy Week is brought to you by Cap Logistics. They're a COBRT partner. Cap Logistics provides customized transportation solutions to the energy industries. You can find out more at caplogistics.com. And that's caplogistics.com. Thanks for being with us. Today we are talking with Emily Haggstrom from Consumer Energy Alliance. She's the Senior Director of Communications. And we'll also be talking with Chris Ventura, Director of State Affairs, Consumer Energy Alliance. Emily, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us. We're pretty excited. It's one of those great opportunities to talk about energy and the great things that we're doing here in Colorado and across the nation.
Thanks so much. So I know you've got some great campaigns and initiatives going on. Tell us a little bit of what you're focused on.
Yeah, well, for those of the listeners that aren't familiar with Consumer Energy Alliance, we bring together energy consumers, end demand consumers, everybody from farmers and small businesses to everyday families and small businesses. And we really try to work with people to engage in meaningful dialogue about America's energy future and what that means for everybody, not just in Colorado, but like I said, across the nation. So, it's something that we're passionate about and always trying to talk about and educate people on. And specifically right now, we are I wouldn't say just launching, but in the midst of a campaign called Campaign for America's Energy. And it's really to talk about some of those issues that people don't realize in policy and different energy conversations. What does energy mean to them?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So would you like to introduce Chris Ventura for us?
Sure. Chris is one of our state directors and does a lot of policy and travels across the country, working with different groups, from various state legislators to, business groups, and also does a lot of work educating people within, the trades and labor groups and different manufacturing. Chris, you can talk a little bit more about some of the work you've done in the Midwest and things that, you're really focused on.
Chris?
I'm here, Tammy. How are you?
Oh, we're great. Thanks for being here with us.
Well, thanks for having me.
So Emily was just saying that you might give us a little perspective of what you're doing in the Midwest region.
Yeah. So in the Midwest right now, a lot of the stuff that we're focused on, you've probably had the awful Arctic snap down there. We have this beautiful thing they call the bomb cyclone, and really stressed portions of our power grid here in the Midwest. And so we've been educating energy consumers, both families and small businesses, about the importance of having a resilient energy grid, whether that means, having better transmission lines, better pipelines to supply energy. So when we do get these cold snaps here in the winter, and out here it gets pretty hot in the summer as well when all the ACs are cranked up, that we don't have rolling brownouts or blackouts or really increased energy bills for families who can't afford it.
Thank you. Thanks for that perspective. And Emily, you mentioned your campaign for America's Energy. What's the focus there? Is that looking at the all of the above energy solutions?
Absolutely. Consumer Energy Alliance has always been an advocate for all of the above energy solutions. When you really think about where people across the nation get their energy. Some people, in Alabama, for instance, may have better opportunities for coal power or natural gas.
Exactly.
And whereas somebody maybe, say, in Washington State has really great opportunities for hydropower and some of the more renewable sources up in that region. So we just try and make sure that policies and legislators and people understand that it's such a different energy mix, and really creating policy for their states that work for their states and work for their people, and ensuring that families, especially low-income individuals, seniors, people on fixed incomes, are able to afford their energy costs. Because for us, it's really making sure that at the end of the day, when you get your paycheck after you've gone to the grocery store,
Yes.
done these things, that you can still afford to, pay your electric bill, and you're not worried about it, and you're not having to choose what you're going to spend your money on. So I think Campaign for America's Energy was really born out of helping people understand more about where their energy comes from and what's good for
Right.
them in their states. And, whether it's policy issues or regulatory issues, or maybe even something just as simple as, figuring out, excuse me, let me use my words.
Well,
Things that affect them on a daily basis,
Right.
is really trying to hone in and cultivate kind of the understanding that those things affect them in their daily lives.
yes, and I think that education to the consumer is such an important part that we talk so much. I joke that some people just think the food comes from the grocery store, right? And it can be the same thing with your energy, that you just flip your switch and it's on. But that it really matters to know where it's coming from, and maybe what the risks are in your area.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we have been discussing lately is it's been kind of a big topic more on the East Coast, but I know that people, especially here in Colorado, care about in terms of environmental issues and things like that. But talking a lot about offshore development, and that's been a big conversation for people, and has gotten people very, very passionate. And for our group, it's really exploring energy. It's energy exploration and how it affects, these, not just these coastal communities, but the benefits that it brings nationwide. Chris, I think you had a really great stats for Colorado on that.
Yeah, so I mean, when you think about being distant from the oceans or the coast, Colorado's got the Rockies that keep it from the Pacific, and a heck of a lot of the rest of the country that they keep it from the Atlantic. But the supply chain that is needed for offshore energy exploration and development is tremendous. And so I mean, just in Colorado alone, if you look at what Colorado's businesses and manufacturers contribute just to energy development in the Gulf of Mexico, it has over a $6 billion impact on state GDP, just from the services and goods that Colorado provides to the offshore industry. So it's a good chunk of change when it comes down to the state GDP. But more than that, it's the number of Coloradans who are actually employed making these products that, in the end, keep our country supplied with, oil and natural gas. Helps us, not just be energy independent, so we don't have to rely on the Mideast or Venezuela for oil. But it also helps drive down the cost at the gas pump, which is sometimes a big concern for families.
Well, and if numbers don't stick in my head very well, but if I remember from the conversations earlier this week, for Colorado, it's a $32 billion industry, the energy production here in the state. So a major just contributor to the economy and all of that. And I'm looking at the website at Consumer Energy Alliance, and your Campaign for America's Energy, you kind of have listed some of the states that are where the focus is on certain energy production. So are there you were mentioning earlier, different strengths in different areas, right?
Right. I think one of the reasons why we chose the states that we did is one, there is, like I said, we advocate for good consumer policies. Is I think that these are areas that if enough attention isn't paid to it, or
Exactly.
we're not focused on that people don't understand the unintended consequences of decisions of choosing to say no.
Right.
And, for example, the Northeast right now, everything that's happening with the different polar vortex, as Chris said, these bomb cyclones that are going on and these random Arctic blasts that have come where you've seen, snow in Raleigh, North Carolina, which doesn't really
Not
get
so
snow.
often.
Yeah. and just, how it shuts down everything, airports close down, schools, get shut down, and
Really impacts everything.
Yeah, everything just stops. So, and one of those things is capacity constraints. A lot of places in the Southeast and the Northeast of the United States have okay supply. Different regulators and different independent organizations have said people in the East, will have adequate supplies. But what happens when those big weather influxes happen, and making sure that people have the ability to have access to that energy? And people forget that it can be very, very expensive. You could go from paying a very, modest electric bill to all of a sudden in one of these big spurts having a sky high utility bill,
going from what you expect to a sudden giant peak.
right? So I think we really took into account some of the areas that we've seen lacking, whether it's affordable energy or abundant source of energy, and making sure that not only is it abundant, but it's affordable.
And part of that is, it comes to a political decision, especially in the Northeast, where you have state policymakers, for the most part, who have said, we want to have as less carbon generation as possible. So, we'll take our coal-fired power plants offline, and to replace that, we'll use a combination of natural gas, but you can't build pipelines to the natural gas plants. You can build solar, you can build wind, especially offshore, but you can put it offshore where we can see it from our houses. And we love hydropower, but you can't build a transmission line from Canada, which has an overabundant supply of hydropower, and import it because we don't want transmission lines. And this one nuclear plant we have remaining, well, we don't like you because you're nuclear and you're scary, so we're going to make sure that you shut down. And so for a country that is so abundant in energy, you have this one section, just the New England region, where, you look at natural gas any other place in the country, it was between $2.30 or $5 a cubic foot. In Boston, the heart of New England, during the middle of this bomb cyclone, they had $600 a cubic foot for natural gas.
Really? Wow.
And you just, take your family or your small business and you move next door one state over or a couple states over to Pennsylvania or portions of New York, and it's, $2.80 on the wholesale market. And, for a region of the country that is so concerned with the environment,
Right.
Because they've said no to pipeline infrastructure, for example, it was cheaper to actually turn off the natural gas-fired power plants and burn heavy oil for power generation. And when you think about what's good for the environment, because there are always trade-offs, we think that we can have, American energy production and a cleaner environment. They go hand in hand with the right policies. But you think of a policy that says, we don't want to build pipelines, we'd rather burn heavy oil to generate electricity, and what that does. It just doesn't make any sense, especially when so many families are bearing the brunt of these decisions. We did an article on Facebook about the bomb cyclone that went across, and people responded with what their utility bills were seeing. And some people saw their bills increase over $200 for the month of December alone.
Wow.
And, for a family that's trying to make ends meet, $200 is a lot of money.
That's a big impact. Yeah.
It is. And, when you think about some of the polling that was done over the course of the past year, and I can't remember which organization did it. It might have been Pew or one of the other groups where they said that the average American family can't afford a $500 emergency expense.
Right.
And you think that their power bill went up by $200 just for a month. If you've got 1 month or 2 months or 3 months of high energy bills, that's could be $600. Where's that money going to come from?
Right. So, do you think you'll see any changes in attitude in the Northeast where they're putting these restrictions in, and then they get hit with such weather that really impacts them in the pocketbook for their energy? Do you think you'll hear some change in attitudes or anything like that?
Yeah, we certainly hope so. I mean, they have, so every state in the country, every region, I should say, has an independent, nonpartisan grid operator that makes sure that we've got enough electrons flowing down the power lines, whether it's sunny or whether it's cold or whether it's just a normal day. And for over 5 years now, their independent grid operator, completely apolitical organization that is just managing their energy grid, has been warning New England's policymakers for years now that if you don't do stuff, if you don't make sure that we've got more capacity for pipelines or making sure that we've got, more renewable resources that can help level out the market, it's going to be painful. And we see what's occurring right now.
Well, then that is a pretty good demonstration of when we talk about that all of the above energy portfolio, that it can't happen all at once. It's not a switch that you can do all renewable. This is then a pretty good example of where it needs to be a mixture.
Well, and you think about how energy operates. Most people don't understand how the electric grid works or how power is actually dispatched onto that grid. And, it's, like I said, it's our goal and our mission to really help people understand that, through energy education or going out to, be a voice to help them understand that. And, for us, it doesn't matter whether you want renewable or you want traditional energy, is what is best for those areas and how do they operate together, and balance, the need, especially for whatever state or city that they're in.
So it says reliable and efficient as possible.
Right. I mean, if you think about even just Colorado, we have in our state, off the latest EIA data, is 60% of coal use, keeps all of our electricity going here. 22% of natural gas and almost 18% renewable, and that was 2015. So if you think about it, now, even over the course of the last 2 years, natural gas use has increased here, and we have more renewables, and our utilities and local operators here have gone and are putting out bids feverishly to expand the renewable portfolio here. But it's building that infrastructure.
Right.
It's getting it on and then being able to take whether it's a coal plant that's been online or a natural gas plant that's been online, and being able to, switch that power source and be able to make that not only timely but dispatchable.
What kind of programs do you have in place to educate consumers? I know that's a big part of the Campaign for America's Energy, but how are you reaching out and getting that information to the American people?
Chris, I think
So
Chris, I think you do a good job of that. And Chris is out
Hmm.
in the states and going state to state and really talking with people. So I think he'd be a great source for that.
why, thank you for that plug.
Of
Uh,
course.
so, so, when we look at energy consumers, we don't have a preconceived notion about who an energy consumer is because literally everyone in this country, if, you are using a phone or if you're cooking or if you're driving or if you're watching a tablet, if you're doing anything, at some point in your day, you're actively consuming energy, regardless of how old you are. And even if you're
Right.
you're a toddler, you usually see them with the parents' phones out, just trying to keep them quiet. That phone has to be charged somehow. And what we do is we try to go into the communities. We do forums with Rotaries, with Kiwanis clubs, with local elected officials, and we bring in experts from across a variety of different areas. We've done this in Colorado for a number of years with our
Hmm.
energy and manufacturing forums. We actually recently just did one. I think it was this past October. Where we have the opportunity to bring in, both Democrats and Republicans, and Emily can share a little bit more information about this, where we have them sitting together at the same table with oil and natural gas producers, with wind energy producers, with solar producers, talking about what it means to have a comprehensive energy policy for Colorado, for example. Emily, I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that event.
Yeah, that was something actually we teamed up with the Colorado Business Roundtable on, and we're able to focus a conversation that both Michael Bennett and Corey Gardner were able to attend and speak to community leaders and business leaders on how they felt about energy and what
Hmm.
really helps Colorado run, and the things that are done at the national level, the federal level, in terms of policy and regulation that affects the people here in Colorado and what that means, whether
Right.
it's jobs or manufacturing. Um, and so, this is something that is really important to us. And so that was, like Chris said, back in October. And we bring in many different energy
Right.
companies to have that conversation. And, it's really interesting because every energy producer or type
Hmm.
of energy producer, from solar and wind to oil and gas and coal, they can have a very productive conversation.
Yeah.
And sitting down with their elected officials makes it even that much more productive. So these are a really great opportunity to talk about what's happening, how communities are directly impacted, and what it means to those businesses and those community leaders as they use and consume energy themselves.
And I think the important part, and I think we actually glossed over this, is that energy is a very bipartisan issue. We think it's a bipartisan issue, anyways. Which is why we're able to get Republicans and Democrats, at the same table,
Hmm.
talking about how important energy is.
Well, and I think it's great to just have that participation from the different, energy companies, all those energy producers, to have their participation in educating the public, in educating lawmakers. You're really doing great work here. We're talking with the Consumer Energy Alliance. I have Emily Haggstrom, the Senior Director of Communications, and Chris Ventura, Director of State Affairs for Consumer Energy Alliance. Stay with us. We'll be back with more right after this break. For staying with us today here on Connect and Collaborate. We are focusing on the energy industry this week, and Energy Week is brought to you by Cap Logistics. They are a COBRT partner. Cap Logistics provides customized transportation solutions to the energy industries. You can find out more about them and their services at caplogistics.com. Now, today we're very excited to have our guests from Consumer Energy Alliance. I'm talking here in studio with Emily Hagstrom, the Senior Director of Communications. Hi, Emily.
Hi there.
And Chris Ventura is joining us, Director of State Affairs for Consumer Energy Alliance. So thank you, Chris, for joining us as well.
Thanks, Tammy.
So, we were talking about your opportunities and efforts to educate consumers on uh, what kind of energy is available to them, where it's really coming from, what it takes to get it like right to their light switch and other
Right.
other amenities, right?
Yeah, and making sure people understand, costs.
Exactly.
One of the big things that we focus on is, affordability and making sure that no matter what state you live in, that your energy is affordable. And I think economists have said, and it's a pretty well-known fact that you shouldn't probably have to spend your whole check on
Right,
on
exactly.
energy. And while most people don't, they do say that about 6% of your income, your check should go to energy, and anything over that, it gets really tough for people. So we just try and make sure that people understand, if you are voting on certain bills or you're approving, something or offering comment or going out in support or maybe going out to oppose certain energy types, what that means and what that could bring to them. Chris, you've done a lot talking with people out there and hearing about billing issues and different issues with capacity constraints and how that affects checks. What are things that you usually talk to them about?
So yeah, some of the things, and this goes on the consumer education side of things, is they ask, what can we do to help reduce our energy costs or lower our energy bills? And when you think of energy, it's not just electricity that people are paying for. It's not just natural gas for home heating that people are paying for. It's also, transportation fuel, for their cars and their trucks. And so, depending on whatever time of year it is, quite honestly, one of the easiest things for energy consumers to control anyways is the temperature of their house or apartment. And luckily technology is here to hopefully save the day a little bit. Because I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, we had that little, circle thermostat on the wall that you had a dial,
Right.
and the temperature never really, lined up with what that red line said it actually was. And so we got these great new things called smart thermostats, and I actually just put one in my house last year because our utility company had an excellent rebate program for it.
Ah.
So even though they're $200 or $300, many times your utility will pay either 100% of that cost to get a smart thermostat, or a good chunk of the actual cost. So it's could be as little as $50 for a smart thermostat. And I got the Ecobee. The other one people talk about is called the Nest. And I basically have a program, for when I'm home and not at work, or if I go on vacation, it automatically adjusts the temperature for me. Also, depending on what room is being used in the house, it automatically adjusts the temperature. And the awesome thing is, at the end of every month, you get an email, and it says, based on the average energy usage in your neighborhood, not just your state, but your neighborhood,
Right.
You've saved this much more money than a comparatively sized house or apartment. And so I've had this thing running for, like I said, a little over a year. And if their calculations are correct, and I looked at the energy bills from the past 2 years earlier, it's actually saved a little over $600, which is a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
Over the year. So the smart thermostats actually do work when they're programmed right, and they're super easy to install too.
Now, can you manage them with your phone too? I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So depending on the brand that you get, if you've got a smartphone, you can go on the smartphone. You can set the thermostat. One of the things that I usually forget to do is say I forget to set an away reminder on the thermostat. When I was going to visit some family over Christmas, I thought, I forgot to tell the thermostat I wasn't going to be there. So I just got onto the smartphone, kicked the furnace down, and we were gone for a few days. And when we were about to return, hopped into the car, set the thermostat, and by the time we got home, the house was ready for us.
It's brilliant, and that I appreciate the example of it was about $600 over a year's time. You definitely paid for the smart thermostat, and then a little spending money.
Yes.
Well, and it's good too because consumers, you go out and maybe that isn't one of the things you're going to splurge on this month. Maybe
Right.
it was something else you were planning, fix the car or the backyard, or maybe you buy a new piece of furniture for the house. A lot of these things can be supplemented by our utility companies. And if you go on to websites like Xcel Energy or Black Hills, they have certain rebate programs and things that they offer, whether it's Energy Star appliances or things that they will help in terms of maybe winterizing, helping you figure out how to winterize your home or prepare to do things that help save you money and lower the amount of electricity you use. So that's always something that we encourage any type of residential consumer to do, is to go online and see what these things are. And if not, maybe it's just to get educated on understanding what you can do, like, here in Colorado when it is cold, what can you do to reduce those electricity and heating costs?
Right. 'Cause, I mean, some of us might not have the Nester. I think you said Eco-V, but you might still have a programmable thermostat and make some of those changes that will make the savings for you as well.
Right. And there's a lot of things, that we, again, continuing on education, it's when you think of an energy consumer, I mean, here in Colorado, just for example, transportation and industrial users are top. And they, when you think about manufacturing and those different, industrial processes that we have here and how much energy is used, what can businesses do to save? What can residents do to save? And one of the things that we continue to focus and talk about are different ways, like I said, to winterize homes and make sure people are doing things that can lower those bills, whether that's, changing the temperature of your water heater or, figuring out the Nest or this Eco-V that can be put into your house. Maybe it's changing the temperature for your washer and dryer. So there's lots of different ways people can save, different things that people don't even think about them. And we call them energy vampires.
Absolutely.
In the industry.
They're just lurking in your house, taking your money and your energy away from you.
Right. So, did you forget to unplug something that's been sitting in the wall that's just slowly draining, and you don't even think about those things?
And sometimes I've heard, do your phone chargers do that sometimes? Yeah, they'll definitely be pulling some energy out, and it's hard to unplug them all the time because you just want it ready for when you don't want to look for things, right?
Yeah.
Most.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say, especially with the phone chargers, people don't realize how much, standby energy those things actually take. And when we've got a program for, we think that, and like I said earlier, we think that energy consumers are people of all ages, from, your senior citizen all the way down to your toddler with mom's phone or tablet. And, one of the things that we try to do is not just educate homeowners and drivers and all of that, but bring energy education down to the grade school level. So kids actually get excited about energy and going into STEM fields. And, with that, we've got a really awesome program that we do. We started it in Houston. And we brought it to Denver last year. It's called Energy Day, and it's designed for families. It's a great program where we've got actual hands-on activities, and this brings me back to the cell phone charger. So there was one of the sponsors of Energy Day had a bicycle. And it was a bicycle that was connected to a cell phone charger. And it was, if your cell phone or your tablet is running low, you can make your own energy. And so we had these kids on the bike who connected their parents' phone, and they were just pedaling the bike as fast as they could. And the faster they pedaled, they actually saw that the phone's battery was charging. And so just, trying to impress on kids that, energy just doesn't happen because you can flip on a light switch.
Yeah.
It's something that is all around us, and there's so many different career opportunities, from welding that's necessary to build pipelines and power plants and refineries, to wind farms, to solar installers. And Emily, I know that you've got a really great story from Energy Day in Denver that we had last year.
Yeah, we had so many different groups join us. Houston is really the energy capital of the world, and when you think about the traditional sources and just Houston in itself, it's a great place to start.
Right.
But I think one of the great things, though, is bringing it to Colorado is we have such a diverse mix. I mean,
yes,
minus nuclear, which we don't have here in the state, is all of the really great companies that are located here, and the people who are contributing to them are just amazing people. The National Lab, National Renewable Energy Laboratories that is here in Golden, being able to come out, and so we really had a great mix of people.
Yeah. And of every kind of energy.
Yeah. So, different solar organizations coming out. Vestas came out and talked about some of the things that they're doing in the state. And while I think it's mostly a lot of their production facilities and manufacturing that's located out here, is Colorado has adopted some pretty aggressive renewable portfolio standards that is really bringing more development of wind, especially onto the Eastern Plains. So having them there and represent the industry was really cool. Talking to some of the solar providers that are getting ready to, do more installation and some of these larger utility scale projects down in the southern part of the state. And then, of course, we have one of the biggest shale plays in the country here in Colorado, and a lot of the production that's happening up in Weld County. So getting to have our natural gas and oil producers that were here and talking to them. So it was really great. And then there's that confluence where you have educators and people who are at these national labs and the schools that have come out, and the kids love it. I mean, it's one of those things where it's not like when you think of an adult, conference where you're walking around and picking up paper and kind of seeing
Here's
things.
a nice pamphlet. Do you have a pen that lights up?
Yeah, can I sign up for an iPad? So
that's where you get your energy, pens that light up.
Yeah, and so no, it's neat because even the parents are having fun.
Yeah,
they really get involved, and the different schools they bring their kids out to show, whether it's kinetic energy or engineering.
To really get those examples of, like we said earlier, where the energy comes from, how it might be produced, how you can tap into more energy and get those kids inspired, and maybe that's a career for them, or at least now they know more about it.
Right. And I think kids, they don't get it. They don't understand it. And, what kind of motivates them to look at these things. And it really gives an opportunity for the adults to step away from the daily grind, and to really showcase what's fun and what brought their love for the STEM, the different various STEM subjects that led them into their industries.
Well, and I'm thinking too, after an event like that, the Energy Day Denver, you get the parents bringing the kids there, and imagine the conversations that happen either on the way home or in the following days, right?
Yeah, I mean, and you're there, like Chris said, watching these kids in these different exhibits. I mean, we've had groups bring giant solar panel, an array that comes down, and it's so big you can't even picture it in your mind.
Right.
And they get to see it and touch it and move it and kind of figure out how it operates and what it looks like to actually see a solar panel, and not the ones you put on your house.
I was going to say,
really
because
big
they've
ones.
probably only seen something on a random house here and there. They haven't seen an actual solar array. And
Yeah, or how if you blow up a balloon, you can stick a needle through it and it won't pop, and the adults get to walk them through why that happens and what's really neat about the science of it. Cheniere Energy, that's located down in Houston, brings in liquefied natural gas, and it kind of has this property that when it's liquefied, that it operates like why can't I think of it?
Am I thinking mercury
Dry,
for you? Or?
like the dry ice kind of, where if you stick a flower in it, it will completely freeze.
Oh,
and
wow.
the kids get to see how that happens and slam down the rows, and all of these pieces and parts fly everywhere, to show them, this is what happens through this process. So it's really neat, and the kids love it. It gives an opportunity for teachers to work with those kids and talk to them about various forms of energy, how they're produced, and what happens with them. So,
wow.
And you left out the best part about Energy Day.
Oh, tell us.
Caterpillar actually brings down some of their big toys that kids can actually go in and play with.
Oh, and not just kids. I bet there's some dads that get pretty amped about that too.
Yes. Oh, yes. Especially the bigger the toy, the bigger the kid is I think how it goes. And when we were at East High last year, they had a special area designed for youngsters that was an obstacle course for their little remote controlled Caterpillar toys, if you remember the whole Tonka toys that they had. And then they also had some of the actual larger machines that they used to build some of these power plants and energy installations that the kids actually got to go in, and the dads got to go in as well. Unfortunately, they were turned off, so we couldn't have that much fun. But it was just amazing.
And thank you so much. These are such great examples, and I think can really inspire parents to want to get their kids to an event like this. So that's Energy Day Denver, and this year will be September 22nd?
September 22nd, 2018. And like I said, our group really gathers with the governor's energy office is working with us, and doing various things across the state to really show that this is not just one type of energy, it's lots of types of energy, and it's, dealing with various schools, CSU, CU, Colorado School of Mines, everybody's really joined. NREL's taken a big step to educate, come out and educate kids and show them the different opportunities. And I think one of the coolest things for us is the sponsors that get involved in the organizations that want to be a part of Energy Day and show what they do and what really is behind, the secret sauce and the magic of their organization is it sponsors young kids who are in science bowls and doing robotics clubs and really showcasing and highlighting the hard work that these kids do every day when they get in with their teachers and are doing their lessons, and what cool ideas they have, and how that the culmination of these cool ideas to showcase them at Energy Day on the actual day, so they get acknowledged right there in person. And the sponsors that are there, it's sponsorship dollars that go to reward these kids for their hard work.
Oh, that's awesome. So mark your calendars for Energy Day this year. It's September 22nd. And then in that note, put consumerenergyalliance.org so you can follow along to when and where it's going to be a part of that. You mentioned, working with, the governor, different lawmakers and things like that. And I know you work with Colorado Business Roundtable to get information out there, like you said, not just to the consumers, but to the lawmakers and policymakers. What efforts are those?
Chris, do you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah. So one of the things that we try to do is we try to bring both Republicans and Democrats and independents together to try to depoliticize energy, because it really doesn't have to be a politicized topic. You think of the country nowadays, and pretty much everything is, you think is politicized, from, what kind of phone you buy to, what kind of car you drive. Everyone's got a different opinion. But when it comes to energy, we try to bring out the experts in whatever field we're working with to help educate policymakers so they can make decisions that are in the best interests of their constituents and all Coloradans who need to use energy for one thing or another. And so Emily, spoke about the forum that we had earlier this year. We do what are called Energy 101s for state legislators across the country, where we take some, topics that, are part of the big national discussions. So, for example, nuclear energy has been a big topic. Maybe not in Colorado, but in California, it's been a big part of the conversation about, we've got this tremendous source of carbon-free electricity, carbon-neutral electricity that generates a tremendous amount of baseload power. How do we best utilize this resource to help keep rates affordable for families? And so we educate legislators about the whole nuclear supply chain. Same thing with wind turbines and solar panels. What that actually looks like when they're talking about different policies that would impact consumers. Like, for example, when you're talking about solar energy, one of the big conversations across the country has been something called net metering, which is if you put a private solar panel on your house, how much do you get back in incentives for doing that? And so, really educating policymakers about why having universal access to solar power, is the way to go, for example.
Well, that's great information too, knowing where, we hear about, that rebates are available if you get solar panels or this kind of thing, but you don't always know the avenues to go down. So that's good information too.
Right. I think, at the end of the day, whether it's educating consumers or educating small business owners or educating lawmakers and policymakers across the country, is really, at the end of the day, this is a nonpartisan issue.
Right.
Energy is something that we all use, we all need to be aware of. Simply saying no is not a solution to any energy type, and it is about finding those reasonable solutions and getting to a point where we as a community can talk about those, and our elected officials are listening to those constituents and making sure that they understand what is good for them in terms of their choices, and helping them realize what happens when you do take certain stances and say no. So it's really just about creating ways that we can continue the conversation on energy in a smart, thoughtful way.
That's wonderful. We appreciate what you're doing with Consumer Energy Alliance to, as you said, educate consumers, but you're also educating the policymakers, and so they can make decisions that are effective for everybody. Thanks so much, Emily Haggstrom, for being here. And Chris Ventura, thank you for joining us by phone. It's a pleasure to have you.
Tammy, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being with us. We hope we'll have more in our Energy Week coming up tomorrow. Stick with us on Connect and Collaborate, and have a great day.